Hello, I am Chris Vaughn with In Her Company, where we harness the power of women to be their own solutions. I am here today with Bree Deck, and after more than 10 years of experience as a potter, she now owns this beautiful space, which is Two Hands Pottery Studio in Fayetteville, Georgia. So today we are here to learn more about her journey and her craft, of course, and perhaps even have some fun. Bree, thank you for having us and welcoming us into this just beautiful place. This is so fabulous just to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. This is such a great opportunity. I'm happy to be here.
Likewise. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, how did you come across your craft?
Yeah, so I was first introduced to clay in elementary school, just through my regular arts class in school. Really inspired me to pursue it. Yeah.
Amazing teachers help. I've had some that weren't so amazing,
Yeah.
but still. So, why pottery and not anything else? What is it?
Yeah, so I am like a craft hopper. I go from craft to craft. There's nothing I haven't tried. Clay is just the one thing I keep coming back to. I really love working with my hands. I love literally feeling the art come to life. It's just something special. It gets me out of my head and into my hands more than anything else ever has.
Yeah. And I get that seriously, especially as a writer. When you say literally feel your way through the process, that really is such a thing.
Mhm.
Just like in writing, we create the characters, but they do actually speak to you. So, yeah, I feel you on that one. But even having that background in art, even being introduced to it, sometimes we still carry like misconceptions or biases of what we're doing even. So did you uncover any like biases?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started, I was under the impression like, oh, this is going to be so easy. Everyone on TV makes it look so easy and
Yeah.
relaxing. Man, it is hard work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It took me months to really get it down to a science. I was spending hours and hours and hours, months and months, just throwing pots and tossing them and throwing and tossing them until I finally got to a point where I created something I was proud of. So it is hard work. You have to put in the work, but it is so rewarding in the end.
Okay. And so after throwing so much away, that wasn't disheartening?
No, it's not disheartening. I took it as a learning experience. Everything, every project I threw away, I learned something from it, whether it be, my hand positioning or if I took the clay too far at one point. It ended up just being a learning experience. So I think that just made me grow as a potter and as an artist.
Okay. So what you're saying is that scrapping, and I find it interesting also that you didn't consider that, you didn't label that failure.
Hmm.
You didn't say I failed so many times and then I just stuck with it. So you said you just scrapped it.
Yeah.
Okay, so being that that's part of a process, do you find that that help you make better art?
It does. I only keep the pieces that I'm really, really proud of.
Okay.
It makes it a lot easier knowing that I can just scrap it. I can reuse that clay as much as possible, so it's not any wasted materials. So it's really nice on that end as well. But yeah, it's just trying and failing over and over again until you're until you're at a point where you want to be. And I've gotten pretty good at doing what I do, just by that learning process.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So let's say that you are like midway into, and I'm playing devil's advocate here on purpose. So let's say that you are midway through a project and it's just not working. Do you continue or do you not
Most
hesitate to just scrap that too?
Most of the time, I actually, once I notice a project is not turning out the way I want it to, I try to take that piece of clay as far as I can possibly go, stretch as much as I can, and see if I can learn something new out of it, since it's a failure anyways.
Okay.
Um, I just try to make each possibility or each opportunity on the wheel a learning curve or a learning possibility. Sorry, a learning possibility.
Yeah.
So I So even if I notice a piece is failing halfway through, I just keep going with it until it breaks.
Got you. Because it may actually turn out into something different then, right?
Yeah,
Or is that not an
absolutely.
option?
I have had a lot of happy accidents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Perhaps we may see some if they're still here. So for those who are not as familiar with pottery,
Mhm.
can you give us a light history of your craft, along with if there are any interesting trivia or historical facts that you can share with us?
Yeah, pottery has been around for years and years and years. There are pieces that are, thousands of years old that are still intact. It is a very like cultural art form. A lot of cultures express their history throughout pottery. Um, One of the major things that people don't really realize is that it takes a lot of time from throwing on the wheel to having a finished product.
Okay.
It is all about patience between throwing on the wheel, trimming, firing it, and firing, glazing, and then firing again. It takes about 2 weeks, sometimes even longer
Oh, wow. That long.
yeah, from start to finish. So
Okay.
it is something that really takes a lot of patience. You can't have instant gratification when it comes to throwing a pot.
Okay. Okay. And that's good to know because we hear a lot, what is it, sipping whatever art beside it, sipping
Mhm.
paint or sipping, weave sometimes. And it sets the expectation that you're going to have fun, perhaps not take it real seriously,
Mhm.
but that you're going to leave with a finished product.
Mhm.
And that's not the case.
Not the case here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Our student pieces take sometimes 3 weeks to finish. So, but people are always excited to come back and see what they made. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So wait a little bit and then you'll still have this beautiful piece or as beautiful as you can make it. Awesome. Um, One of the questions, and this isn't painting, of course, but we have clay that's unmolded. So does the blank canvas hold any significance to you?
Absolutely. I see an unworked ball of clay or an unworked bag of clay as just an opportunity to learn. I've never opened a bag of clay and not learned something new, and I've never opened a bag of clay and not failed at something. So it's always a new experience.
It sounds like it builds, your craft builds resilience along the way.
Yes,
Do you feel you know yourself better now?
I do feel I know myself better. I've had like a self-discovery journey throughout my ceramic experience, and I really honed in on what art I want to make for me. I like to focus on things that I would have in my house, and really use that as a way of expressing myself and my style by creating things that I would like to have.
Gotcha. So why not keep the art to yourself or just with like your circle of friends who are also potters? Why open the studio?
Oh man. I opened the studio so people can have a place to come play and figure out their own style. I have a lot of beginners in here that don't really have an opportunity to do this anywhere else, and they're just coming in to figure it out on their own. And I foster that as much as I possibly can. I am very passionate about giving beginners an opportunity. And making sure I can supply them with whatever inspiration they need to succeed.
Awesome. Well, I am definitely a beginner. So why don't you tell us more about your creative process, but can we actually
Yeah,
do activities while
absolutely.
you're explaining that to us?
Yes. So I will run you through my creative process and my thoughts while I'm throwing a pot. So my creative process, I throw left-handed. I taught myself that way for whatever, who knows how, or who
Okay.
knows why. So my wheel is spinning clockwise, but if you're right-handed, yours will be spinning counterclockwise.
Okay.
I take my sponge and I dip it in some water, get my wheel not super wet, but a little damp. It just helps the clay stick.
Okay.
I like to keep my sponge just in my water. And I grab my clay I am throwing it down as close to the center as I possibly can.
Okay. Literally.
Literally.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay.
gonna dust that one off and do it again. If it's not in the center, I like to still push it kind of to get there. Give it a good smack so it seals to the wheel.
Okay.
And then it's time to begin. So I'm taking some more water. At every point in the process, I want my clay to be shiny. If it gets too tacky, it will just stick to your hand and not stay centered.
Ah, okay.
So I'm using as much water as I need to make sure it doesn't get dry. And I am putting my hand in this position, so the clay has to be in this little angle.
Okay.
It's equal parts pushing down with this part of your hand and pushing in with this part of your hand.
Gotcha.
So I am pushing down with my top hand and pushing in with my supporting hand on the side. And I'm squeezing water as I feel I need. Centering is the most crucial part of the whole process. It is the foundation for your entire piece. So this is, you really want to make sure you have this down pat before you keep going.
Gotcha.
I'm keeping my wheel pretty fast here.
And so too much water is equally bad then, right?
Too much water is equally bad. The clay can get waterlogged and be really hard to work, or actually too easy to work.
Okay.
And just lose its structural integrity. I'm really using my body weight to lean into it rather than just arm strength.
Gotcha.
And we are nice and centered. If you can put your hand on it and your hand's not bouncing around, then you're good to go.
Okay.
The next part of the process is coning up. So this is just making sure that the clay is all one, like an even smoothness throughout. So I'm going to take my hands on this side, and push in from the bottom, and it will force the clay up.
I see. Wow.
So that forces the clay up into a nice cone. And then I'm going to push it back down and recenter.
And what's the purpose of coning it and then bringing it back down?
So that just makes sure it's like an even texture throughout the clay. We do this thing called wedging, which just gets the clay nice and warmed up before we're throwing the wheel. And this is just a way to do that while you're working on the wheel.
Gotcha.
So I am recentering. Same hand motion. Top hand is pushing down while the bottom hand is pushing in.
And do you have an idea of what you're creating now? Or are you just
I'm just kind of going with the flow.
Gotcha.
I understand this is a pound of clay, and I kind of know,
really?
yeah, I kind of know like how much that will get me.
Okay.
So this is probably looking at a small cup. Nothing too big.
Okay. Do you ever sit down at the wheel and with no intention in mind and say, let's see what we make today?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, I like to sometimes use larger bits of clay and just kind of push myself
Okay.
and see how far I can take it.
This is really exciting to watch. And so you're keeping it stable at all times.
Keeping it stable at all times. Your hands are working together as one tool. So it's also really important to keep your hands together at all times. I like to have my thumbs just linked. And we're looking good there. So next step, I'm going to kind of dig a hole and open up. So I'm taking my finger and moving towards the center until I feel that the clay is moving just underneath my finger.
Gotcha.
And I'm pushing down at an angle to get to the bottom of my piece. At this point, I'm going to take my needle tool and check the depth. So that's about 1/4 of an inch. That's perfect. If it's too thin, then the bottom of your piece will fall off when you're taking it off the wheel.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take I like to use my middle finger. You can also use your index finger. And as my hands with one unit, I'm pulling this clay straight towards me to create my walls. And then I'm going to, once I have my walls formed, I'm going to take my finger and run it across the bottom, back and forth. Okay. This is compressing the clay at the bottom and making sure that no cracks form when it's drying.
Gotcha.
And then once we're at this point, we're ready to start pulling the walls. This piece of clay won't get super tall because it's only 1 pound. It takes quite a bit of clay to create like a mug or a plate or bowl. So what I'm doing is taking my sponge wrapped around my finger at the bottom. I like to wrap it around my middle finger at the bottom of the outside. And my inside hand is going to rest just above it. So there's going to be a lump of clay in between this part and this part of my fingers.
Okay.
And I'm pinching that up and pulling up as I go.
Wow.
So this is the second trickiest step of the whole process.
Yeah, it sounds like, because I'm watching you do it, but it sounds like it could be.
So, so when you're watching me pull this next wall, you'll notice the lump of clay that I'm pulling up, start coming up.
Gotcha.
I'm pushing more with my outside hand than I am my inside hand.
Okay. Wow.
So we've got a nice little bowl ramekin here.
Nice.
And I'm
gonna there's no way you're taking this home in one day.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, so it takes about a week to dry before we can even fire it the first time. So it is a waiting game.
So how do you know when your work is complete?
So that is something that the clay tells you. There's a point in the process where you can take the clay too far and it just won't work for you anymore. So you really have to feel your way through it. This is a very touch-based art form. So you have to know what you're feeling for more than what you're looking at. I can sit there for hours perfecting a piece.
Okay.
And I will just take it too far. So you really just have to eventually call a pot and be happy with what you've created. And a big part of the process is remembering that you're not a machine, so it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be handmade.
Gotcha.
So
you learn to trust yourself as well as your senses.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That looks wonderful.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm just going to take my fingers. I want the wheel to be spinning into my fingers rather than it spinning against, so it's not. It will throw it off center if it's not spinning through. So I'm taking my hand that it's spinning through, which is my right hand, and I'm going to pinch this rim, and then with my other finger, I am going to press it down to compress the rim, and then we are ready to roll and cut it off the pot. To cut it off, I'm taking my sponge. We call it flooding the wheel. I'm just putting a lot of water all around the wheel. I take my wire tool and I wrap it around my fingers, kind of like dental floss.
Okay.
And then I'm pulling it through the water and under my piece.
Ah.
And then I like to do it, I like to see where it's at 2 times just to get some water under there. And it should slide right off.
Wow. How about that? Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah.
us. Thank you. That was an amazing experience. Thank you so much for sharing your creative process with us.
Yeah, thank you.
But I have another question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you obviously create art. You obviously have a studio. But when did you actually start valuing your own art, your own creations?
Really, when I started getting tangible items that I could bring home and use in my everyday life, that's when I really started to see that I made something I'm really proud of and that I love having in my house and I love using. My favorite mugs are the ones that I made, and my utensil holder that I made. It's like my favorite piece of decor in the house, so it's really fun seeing the things that I created have such an impact in my personal life.
Oh, wow. So the function
The
of them.
function,
Do
yeah.
you think that you would have felt the same if it was more of an aesthetic piece or
I think
hard to
so.
say?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I'm a big home decor person, so I have a lot of like more aesthetic pieces that aren't so functional, that still are very valuable to me, and others have seen value in them as well. It's nice and it's really rewarding.
Rewarding. So let's talk about the starving artist. I can't leave here without what are your thoughts on that starving artist stereotype?
Oh man.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the starving artist stereotype is very detrimental.
Yeah.
I think it really just discourages people from even trying. Um, Having an art-based career is such a passionate decision to make. And it's about way more than the money. I don't think any artist that does it that does it professionally is really thinking about the money. They're just thinking about that they can have a job that's creative and they can express themselves. That's really where I found the value in it. And to have the starving artist stereotype just shoot down every chance you have, that's a little detrimental to creators.
I agree. That parents, we mean well. I'm a parent. Parents mean well when their child comes to them and it's like, hey, I want to paint or I want to be a ballerina, like, what I did when I was little. I took ballet, but I also took 8 years of classical piano. And then the response is, oh, that's so awesome. But okay, what are you really going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad because the parents are well intended. What they're really asking is, okay, that's great, but make sure you'll take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
However, what the child hears is, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
I can't do that. No one's going to take me seriously. So, yeah, that's sort of like what the intent and what we walk away with are two different things. But then when we get older, it becomes if you're expected to have a story of like forlonging and creating from suffering and pain and because people pay handsomely for that, but it doesn't sound like that's your story at all. It sounds like you create from joy.
Yeah, I create from joy. Um, I create things that allow me to express myself, and my personality really shines through my artwork.
Yeah, that is awesome. So what is one thing out of all the things you could possibly say, what is one thing that you wish people knew most about your art?
I wish people knew the hard work that it goes into, or that goes into it. It takes years to master this craft and to get something out of it. I have a lot of students that get frustrated on on their first pot, because it's not perfect. But I think that's all part of the journey, and it's the most beautiful thing to see your progression throughout the years.
Yeah. Speaking of journey, what's next for yours?
I am currently working on my first pottery collection, my first ceramics collection.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So that will be released this summer. I'm a July baby, so it will be released on my birthday. Yeah. So that's what's next for me. Until then, I'm gonna keep running the studio and sharing this space with people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Make sure you update us when that comes out.
Absolutely,
Yeah, we'd
yeah.
love to see the pieces. And so, how can our audience reach you?
They can reach me on Instagram or Facebook. We're at Two Hands Fayetteville, Two Hands Pottery Studio. You can go to twohandspotterystudio.com, or you can come into the studio in Fayetteville, Georgia, and see me in person.
Yes, come.
Yeah.
If you're local or even if you're visiting and you come into the area, come, Fayetteville, Georgia. So, last question.
Mhm.
What does creativity mean to you?
Oh man, creativity is a form of self-expression. You take all of your inner thoughts and put it into something tangible, and it's the ultimate way to express yourself and get it out of your head and into something.
Thank you, Bree.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us into your studio.
Thank you so much. This is a great opportunity. Nice chat.